Well, our next speaker is from LANXESS, a specialty chemicals company, and it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Mathias Zachert for his presentation. Thank you very much. Oh, there he is. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me here at the GPCA. And I'm going to present today our view on what moves the chemical industry, notably the chemical industry in Europe, and what measures we have taken as a company in order to adapt to it. Before I move to the agenda, let me first of all introduce in a few words our company. Being spun off from Bayer in 2004, with all the historic knowledge of the Bayer chemical group in the chemistry, notably in plastics, rubber intermediates, and specialty chemicals, we've been a listed company since. Being globally present in 55 sites worldwide in all regions with around about 17,000 people in around about 30 countries. And the company size is about 8 billion euro. When we look into the industry trends in 2014, we basically spotted 5 key trends that all of us in Europe are exposed to. And I will dive deep into all of them with my very next slides. So industry trend number 1 for us is clearly the competitiveness of raw materials. If you look into especially the polymer industry, you will see that around about 75% of the product costs are made of raw materials and energy prices in Europe. So by this setup, you can assume that in the future, and this is our clear view as a company, you can assume that in the future, these polymer products will be dominated by the oil and gas companies, which will more and more move downstream. So with good technology and the best raw material and energy prices, our view is that in the future, the industry setup will substantially change. In our case, highlighted on this slide, rubber is composed of around about 75% oil-based derivative products and energy. So here, our view clearly is being confirmed that the downstream areas eventually will be in the hands of companies that have the best competitive raw material position. Industry trend number 2 that currently leads to a major sandwich position in the European chemical space is derived from the moves in the respective chemical regions. From the feedstock advantage and shale gas advantage that the North American companies have, products will come stronger to the European region, especially here, everything that is C2 based. The same is happening from the Middle East. We see now that with the great sites of Sadara and Sartop having been established in the kingdom, of course, products will flow also to Europe. And as far as China is concerned, the market where the European chemical industry used to export strongly has become self-sufficient. So here, China will less become an export market and will rather be seen as exporter in the European hemisphere. From that standpoint, of course, many of the European chemical companies have to reposition themselves. Trend number 3 is China. China already today is the biggest chemical market in the world and will by far dominate also in the next 10, 20 years the chemical industry. We strongly believe in the fact that China will remain the key growth driver for the chemical industry in the years to come. Trend number 4, a change in innovation. Less new molecules, more innovation in process innovation and product application. Trend number 5, environmental standards will become the license to operate. Either you match highest environmental standards or you are out of business. This trend, I think, is one where the European chemical industry has focused on a lot. It has now become an advantage, and therefore we are prepared to compete according to highest standards. So with these 5 industry trends, strong industry trends, we confronted our own position and took our respective conclusions out of these trends. And with this, I come to the LANXESS realignment program, which we started 2014. At that point in time, we were in a situation where ourselves, we were building the 3 biggest global state-of-the-art rubber plants, notably in Asia, in Singapore and in China. Whilst these production plants are of highest standards, world scale and best quality, of course, we created through building these plants an oversupply situation that led to a price erosion. At the same point in time, we were accelerating too fast, as you can see in the middle of the slide, the extension of headquarter functions, which had a stronger growth rate than our sales. At the end of the day, leading to a loss in competitiveness. And unfortunately, at the same point in time, 2013, the industry suffered due to the Southern European crisis, debt crisis, and so profitability slumped while our debt was nearly breaking our backbone. At that point in time, we decided in 2014 to adjust our business structures again, reduce our costs, which by now have been reduced by around about 300 million euros, to change our competitiveness in our production network, and to also change our portfolio. At the same point in time, we clearly said that the company in the future, strategy-wise, should be dependent less on volatile raw materials, focus on constant process optimization, integrate value chains, focus the growth on China, Southeast Asia, and US. And at the same point in time, make the existing Verbund sites more competitive, notably in Europe. So the big first move on the portfolio was definitely to create a powerhouse in the rubber space. As I've presented to you before, we believe in the backward integration in the polymer industry. And our belief was very clearly that here, any product that is dominated by raw materials and energy in the future will be in the hands of backward integrated companies. So in 2014, we started to discuss with various oil companies and gas companies that clearly saw the strategic rationale to integrate value chains. And while we were discussing with many oil companies worldwide, we always considered Saudi Aramco as the biggest oil and gas company in the world with superb international standards to be the best fit for our company. So here, the leader in synthetic rubber combining with the leader in oil and gas industry. And so both companies in 2015 made the agreement to bring all the best knowledge, best players, best people, best technology, worldwide market leadership together, and to form a company called LANXESS. In return, for 50% of shares, LANXESS received 1.2 billion in cash, which we will now deploy in building our portfolio further. LANXESS, in return, will more and more backwards integrate itself and will build global value chains that will be the most competitive ones in the rubber industry in the future. and of course the shareholders, Saudi Aramco and LANXESS, are prepared to actively participate in the consolidation of the rubber industry in the next few years, and definitely in a time when the market will still be at its trough, so that we then, from a better consolidated position, benefit when the market turns up in 2019 onwards. Our belief is that this industry will dramatically consolidate and that eventually only a few global players with backward integrated value chains will survive. As you can see from this slide, LANXESS used to be the biggest player in the rubber industry. But among the top 10 players, we were the only one that was neither forward nor backward integrated. And our belief is that in the next 10 to 15 years, there will be only 3-4 players remaining. And our assumption is LANXESS will become the most competitive global powerhouse that the industry has ever seen. As far as LANXESS is concerned, of course, we are pursuing also our further development. And here, with the proceeds that we have received from the LANXESS transaction, we have now embarked on a growth path. Organically, we will invest around about 400 million in our remaining 3 divisions, which are comprised of intermediates, performance chemicals, and polyamides. At the same point in time, we will upgrade our existing portfolio, and we've made a first step in April this year when we announced to consolidate in the biocide space and buying the Vicron business of Chemours. So all in all here, we have paid around about 200 million euros for a 100 million and high margin business, making around about 20 million of EBITDA. With this step, we will upgrade our biocides business and bring it into the first league in the industry. The bigger move that we did was announced in September this year when we announced the planned acquisition of Chemtura. Chemtura is a strong fit to our portfolio because 70% of their portfolio fits with our businesses in the flame retardants and lubricant additive space, businesses that we already are operating in today. All in all, we will thus increase our sales base by around about 1.5 billion euros, and without synergies, will add another 250 million of EBITDA to our P&L. On top of that, as presented in our strategic direction, explained to you before, we will substantially enlarge our assets and sales footprint in North America, a strategic target that we have. So going forward, we will create one of the biggest additives divisions globally, especially in the space of flame retardants and lube adds. The Chemtura acquisition will of course further strengthen our position in North America and in mid-sized markets. And after completion of the synergies, which we estimate to be around about 100 million, this division should be at a completely different profitability level than today. We aspire margins of around about 20%. So the new LANXESS is clearly focusing on a dynamic, resilient, and more profitable company than today. We have a clear strategic focus on quality, technology, and innovation. And of course, we consider that the company in the future will be less dependent on raw materials, because as stated before, raw material intensive products, from our view, over the next 10, 15, 20 years will go to the oil and gas companies that will integrate further downstream. Our foundation will focus on leading technologies and market positions where we can make a difference with high technology standards and know-how. We have in our company a strong performance culture and a desire for entrepreneurial leadership. And of course, one element which will always be endeavored to be improved is quality in products, processes, and employees. At the same point in time, we focus on sustainability. Whilst in the last 10 years we could make major strides in the optimization of greenhouse gas emissions, we also target for the next 10 years further reduction potential of around about 25%. So, in a nutshell, the imperatives for us are very clear. The industry is changing at a pace that has never been seen before. So our view is, if you want to succeed, you have to constantly change your setup and question yourself. As far as culture is concerned, an entrepreneurial, open-minded, and strong performance culture is needed to be successful in a very competitive industry. And one underlying theme will always remain, it's innovation and sustainability. Thank you very much.